A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on the 2nd of January 2025. The transfer window's open. And by the sound of it, it looks like we will be doing some business in this market. A semi-confirmed sort of suggestion by Julian Lopetegui in his press conference on Thursday seemed to suggest that when asked about reinforcements, especially because of injuries to Mikel Antonio and Jared Bowen, he replied that the club are working on things and that they know what we need. If you're new to this channel, please do hit that subscribe button. And whether you're a new subscriber or existing, if you enjoy the content, if you appreciate the content, please hit the like button and leave your comments below this video. Well, with all the various links to several players in several positions, what exactly would make us a better team under Julian Lopetegui? Now, no one can deny that he's tried several different lineups, several different formations, several different types of tactics, but we have only looked half decent on a handful of occasions and so far this season. The one thing that we've not had this season is a string of consistent, convincing performances. The early part of the season showed some promise with a decent second half performance against Man City, despite our defeat against them, as well as our decent away win against Newcastle United and so on. But it's the inconsistency, the use of the players in unfamiliar positions, and the chopping and changing of lineups that has led fans to become quite frustrated. And some would suggest that the frustration has boiled over to the squad as well, you know, with talks of disagreements and bust-ups behind the scenes. So what is it that Lopetegui needs in this transfer window? That's, of course, if he's going to continue to be our head coach until the end of this season. Well, I think we can all agree that if there were no financial restrictions in this transfer window, then we will probably go for maybe 3, maybe even 4 players. And most of those players would be looking at completely changing the spine of this team. So in other words, another centre-back, a box-to-box midfielder, and of course, a striker. Now, do I think we would get all 3 in this transfer window? No, not at all. But I do think there's a fair chance we'll get at least 2 players, of which one is very likely to be a midfielder and the other to be a striker. If the worst comes to the worst and we only bring in just one additional player, then I think for me, it's got to be a striker above anything else. But it has to be the right kind of player, the right kind of striker who's agile and has got pace to burn. So let's do a whirlwind roundup of the latest transfer rumours. And of course, the first one that's come up again is that we have interest in 20-year-old Brighton and Republic of Ireland striker, Evan Ferguson. Now, look, apparently West Ham have approached his agents and Brighton to talk about a short-term loan deal. But apparently Brighton want to attach a £60 million obligation to buy in that loan agreement. I've kind of said it the other week when I talked about Ferguson. For me, 60 million is probably way too much for him. Do I think he's worth it? I don't think anyone is going to think that Ferguson is worth it, that sort of money, but certainly he'll be worth, you know, maybe 35, 40 million. But will Brighton allow him to go for just that sort of money? That I don't know. Ferguson, he moved to Brighton in 2021 for a nominal fee, where he continued his development in the under-21s before making his senior appearance. In the 2022-23 season, he made 25 senior appearances, scoring 10 goals with 3 assists. He followed that up last season with 36 senior appearances, which included Europe, and he only scored 6 goals. So despite getting more game time last season, he didn't seem to make the same impact. So far this season, he's made 14 senior appearances, but mainly coming on as a sub from the bench, and he's only scored just the 1 goal so far. So if anything, kind of seems to be regressing rather than progressing. But he's a young player. and he's keen to want to play. He wants to get more game time, and that's clearly not happening at Brighton this season. Whereas West Ham United are desperate for reinforcements, especially up front, and some may see Ferguson as an ideal choice. When he was leaving his previous club, Bohemians, he opted to sign for Brighton over Liverpool, who had shown a keen interest in him. And one of the reasons why he moved to Brighton was because he believed he would get a lot more game time than he would at a bigger club like Liverpool. Now, that's a good thing, really. It's good to see a young player thinking about getting game time rather than just being sort of dazzled by the bright lights of a big team. And then, maybe he'll get some development, and maybe he would have ended up going out on loan somewhere. But Ferguson is clearly keen on playing first team football for a Premier League football team. So what does he offer? Well, in his first season at Brighton, like I said, he scored 10 goals. He ranked higher than average for shots per game than most Premier League strikers in that season. He also had a high return on passing accuracy, and he did his fair share of defensive duties to help the team win back possession. It kind of demonstrates, therefore, he's got an eye for goal, he's got good tactical ability, and he's got a willingness to fight and be a team player. He's got great physical presence, and he uses his 6'2" frame to good effect in terms of shielding the ball from opposition defenses. He's a good target man, and many would argue that perhaps he's a kind of a younger and more skillful version of Antonio. Now, all good, but does he possess the same sort of bursts of pace that Antonio once had? I don't know. Not really. He isn't a pacey player, for example, like a John Duran, who we chased in the summer. But having said that, he is technically proficient. He's got great movement on and off the ball. In that respect, he's excellent. So would he fit the current West Ham system? In all honesty, I don't know. I'm not sure that he will do. We have had Antonio, of course, in the early part of the season, playing a similar role to that of Ferguson's. And okay, Ferguson is a younger player and more agile than Antonio, but I still feel that our team would benefit much more immensely with someone up front who can lead the line with a huge amount of pace. Let's see how this one pans out. But it won't surprise me if we don't make a move for Ferguson in this window, or if we don't finalise a move in this window. Now, let's move on to the midfield. And of all the current transfer links that are somewhat baffle me at the moment, is that of a Premier League midfielder who's currently on loan to a Championship team. No, it's not our very own Freddie Potts, who's on loan at Portsmouth, but Southampton's Shea Charles on loan at Sheffield United. Now, I don't doubt that Charles is having a very good season. Indeed, he seems to be quite a standout player in the Championship this season. He developed through the Man City youth system and is yet another young player who just needed to move on from a big club, a big academy, in order to get a real chance of playing. Southampton bought the player in the summer of 2023 when they paid just over £10 million for the player. And he made last season 38 appearances in all competitions. But for some reason, Southampton saw it fit to loan him out this season back into the Championship rather than using him in their senior squad in the Premier League. And perhaps, in hindsight, with his performances for Sheffield Wednesday, this season Southampton may have been better off keeping him. Now, the fact that Flynn Downs has been a preferred choice of defensive midfielder to Charles might suggest where Southampton manager Russell Martin's trust lied at the time when he was putting in his Premier League squad together. Maybe he just thought that Charles didn't quite have it in order to make it in the Premier League this season. Now, many are suggesting that Charles is destined to end up at a top four club, and that a team like West Ham could certainly benefit from having him now. Look, apparently the fee of something like 10 to 15 million pounds might well prove to be a good future asset. But would we go out and spend that money on a player when in fact we've got our very own central midfielder who is currently out on loan in the Championship and who could come back I don't know what the deal is at the moment, could possibly come back from his loan spell at Portsmouth. It certainly wouldn't cost us anything if we brought Freddie Potts back to West Ham. And Portsmouth fans have been waxing lyrical about him. It's much the same way as what happened last season when he was on loan at Wycombe Wanderers, where he became their player of the season. And at this moment in time, he's getting the same accolades from the Portsmouth fans as the Wycombe fans last season. For me, it makes sense. But like I said, I don't know what the agreement is with the loan spell. Sometimes you've got a clause in there that you can call back players, and sometimes you can't. But if we're looking to move Guido Rodriguez on in this transfer window, then someone like Freddie Potts, for me, is a great prospect to bring back. Of course, we've got other players that are rumoured to be returning to West Ham in this window. And they're, of course, loanees James Ward-Prowse at Nottingham Forest and Maxwell Cornet at Southampton. Now, in his press conference, Ivan Juric more or less confirmed that there are plans for Cornet to be returned from his short loan spell at Southampton. Apparently, there's been interest from a few championship sides over Cornet, so it remains to be seen whether he does come back first of all, and whether another loan deal or maybe even a permanent transfer is in the offing. However, could Cornet come back and be used by West Ham? Well, the irony is he did once have pace, and he can play up front as well as left back, as well as a left wing back, as well as a right-sided attacking player. He's a very versatile player, and he could certainly be useful. But alas, it's his ability that is in question. And as for Ward-Prowse, to be honest with you, I'm not sure why fans are screaming for his return. Do I think he will add any more to the current midfield that we have? Not really. Maybe his set pieces, his ability in those might be what we're currently lacking. But for me, what we really need is a strong box-to-box midfielder who can dominate that area of the park for us. Ward-Prowse, really, to be honest with you, in my reckoning, isn't that kind of player. So I don't think he'll be coming back in January, to be honest. But there is one central midfielder that apparently we're linked to who might fit the bill, and that's Lyon's Maxence Caqueret, or Caqueret. Now, here's a midfielder that can provide everything that we need in the centre of the park. And it's a surprise, to be honest with you, that there aren't that many top clubs chasing him. The 24-year-old Frenchman really is a box-to-box midfielder who's as comfortable in defensive midfield as he is in a more attacking or in a more central role. Now, he's developed through the Lyon youth ranks, and he's gone on to make over 180 appearances for the club in all competitions. Now, look, he's not the most prolific midfielder in terms of goal scoring. He's only notched up 7 goals, and he's only got 15 assists. And maybe that's probably why some of the top teams have overlooked him. But yeah, he does offer something in midfield that is to glue the defence and midfield together. And at that, he's most adept. He's a battler, a fighter, a player who is good at keeping possession of the ball as well. Now, whilst I truly don't believe that we need yet another creative midfielder, as some people are suggesting, I do think we need a midfielder that will allow our current crop of attacking players to flourish and develop. And Caqueret could well be that player. But will Lyon sell him? Well, Lyon are facing quite a number of sanctions due to their financial situation, and they are under threat of automatic relegation, as well as being in danger of receiving a transfer ban. They've got to get their finances in order, and they've got to do it sooner rather than later. And Caqueret could be one player that they might have no choice but to cash in on. And given that Lyon still owe us money on the Saïd Benrahma transfer, a deal to bring Caqueret to West Ham could be closer than we all think. Again, especially if Rodriguez is going elsewhere. So let's see how that pans out as well. And then finally, of course, at the back, where again we've been linked with AC Milan's Fakayo Tomori. Now, throughout last summer, there was constant talk of Tomori being a transfer target for several clubs, including West Ham. The 27-year-old right-footed central defender moved to Milan from Chelsea for a fee of £32 million back in 2021. And he's still got a contract there until 2027. He's been a regular for the Italian club, making 157 appearances in all competitions. However, this season has seen him lose his regular starting berth, mainly because of last season that hampered his continuity because of hamstring injuries. In general and overall, his injury record has been actually okay. And it's only last season that it's been quite serious, where he missed 13 games. He's now currently valued at something like £20 million. And it concerns me somewhat if we were to go for a defender who's now beginning to have issues with his injuries, especially hamstrings. If you recall, we suffered immensely with the likes of Kurt Zouma with his knee injuries, where when we bought him, it was at a time when he was of a similar age to Tomori, Tomori is right now. And despite getting some good game time out of him, we were finding that we were managing Kurt Zouma's injuries and fitness far more closely than probably we would have liked to. And I wouldn't want the same with Tomori. But despite having said that, right-footed Tomori mainly operated as operator on the left side of central defence, and that means he could be good cover for Max Kilman should we lose him to injuries or suspensions. And also, to be really honest with you, his proficiency in defence is probably far more superior to that of either Jean-Claire Todibos or Dinos Mavropanos. £20 million would get Tomori, and I guess really in this day and age, that's not really a big outlay. And given that, like I said, he can also cover for Kilman as well as be a good partner for him at centre back, maybe, just maybe, he's someone worth thinking of. But will we get him now, or might he be a player that might likely to arrive in the summer? Look, with our so-called limited funds, I doubt we'll be spending too much money in this January window. And of course, we're constantly being told that we're too close to PSR limits for our own liking. Now, so we're going to have to raise funds, and that is as important as bringing players in. Especially more so if we have to welcome back players who are on loan, because that increases our salary budget. Hence the ongoing rumours that we might end up selling the likes of Rodriguez, Luisao, who's not played any senior games, and Andy Irving, who I mentioned the other day, has apparently got an interest from Celtic. Now, those three players alone could save over £100,000 a week in wages alone. There's a lot riding on this transfer window, to be quite honest with you. Not only do we have to look at strengthening the squad, but there's a lot riding on it with regards to what happens with Hudon Lopetegui. He's got to get the right players in as well. And of course, there's a lot riding on Tim Stiding's reputation to get this right too. It's going to be interesting to see what we do. I'm sure there's going to be an awful lot more rumours between now and when the window closes in the early parts of February. So do watch out for the latest updates as they come along. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Do leave your comments. Do become a subscriber if you have yet to do so. And do hit that like button as well. And I will see you all again very soon.